You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hi. Okay, so today I'm joined by Deana Panza, therapist, speaker, coach, wellness educator, and yoga teacher who helps people reconnect with their most authentic selves through mindfulness, self-awareness, and exploration. Deana describes herself as a helper, and her passion for helping comes in the form of collaboration with her clients to help them feel empowered to take back control of their lives and get to know their true selves. Today, Deana and I talk about the art of saying no. We talk about finding purpose and fulfillment, confidence, and we take a look at the idea of who we are versus what we do. Lots of food for thought here in this one, and I hope you have as good of a time listening as we did talking. There were definitely a strong case of the sillies happening, but I definitely do not think it takes away from the heart and the meaning and the meat of the combo. So here's Deana. Hey, Deana, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm going to say we are a little giggly, but I am because I'm just having a frazzled day. I think I'm rubbing off on you. So we're going to try to get through this.
I like it. Such a good tone.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate you. You've got a very nice energy about you, just very casual and calm, and I need that today. So thank you. Oh my goodness. Anyway, Deana, you are a therapist, a coach, a yoga teacher. You've got a lot going on. How would you describe yourself?
I don't know. I don't really feel like I describe myself. I describe myself as a helper. That's how I describe myself. Because I think that that's kind of just been in my blood. I was born into a family of helpers, whether it was, in the medical field or in mental health. I come from a long line of helpers. Even just when I was young, I feel like I was a good go-to person for friends. I've just always been a helper, whether that's worked out for me really well or not, but that's just kind of been how I've always showed up, and I've channeled it in different ways throughout my life as I've grown up.
Okay, so I definitely want to get into that, but literally the first thought I had as soon as you said I would describe myself as a helper is, have you ever been a helper to a fault or to the detriment of yourself?
Oh yeah, 100%. And just really recently, actually, my husband was like, you're starting to get really good at saying no. I was like, thank you for noticing. Yeah.
It is a skill.
Yeah, because it's very much, especially as I've been, as multifaceted as I am, and as many different areas of my life I've had my hands in. For a long time, I had my hands in a lot all at the same time, but and that was all to get me to the point that I'm really at right now, which is being able to help people professionally. And, it took a lot. I was planning a wedding. I was teaching yoga. I was doing my master's program for clinical mental health counseling. I was doing my internship. I was working multiple jobs, and I still wanted to show up for my friends that were going through hard stuff. I still wanted to show up for my husband that was having a hard time during those years. And it was running me dry trying to learn how to separate a little bit and for that to be okay.
Yeah.
For me to not always need to be fully invested in all of what everyone is going through.
Yeah. What do you find yourself saying no to most often now?
Um, no to oh, no to like social things that I just don't need.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no, sorry.
I think that that comes with age, but
Yeah.
like for me, I was like the person I wanted to be. I wanted to be at all the things, and I wanted to stay,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to really be there and like show up big. So doing that, and then just like being able to say no to, I mean, in work, being able to say no to like that's not for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that there's this thing, especially when we're and this I started to kind of get good at when I was a yoga teacher, like recognizing like, no, I'm sorry, I can't sub a class for you at that time because I'm useless at that time.
Mm.
And like recognizing that saying no to certain things allows you to say yes in a way that can better serve you and the people that you're trying to reach in those areas. You know, if I said yes to everything, it's like one, I'm totally drained, I'm totally dry.
Mm-hmm.
And two, some of those things aren't really aligned and connected for me. So I'm showing up weird in them anyway. So, or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
I'm
just
laughing because I understand that feeling. Yeah. Do
yeah.
do you think that see, I feel like one of the things that I had to learn and more or less get over in a sense in order to start saying no more often was to understand that the person's feeling about me saying no isn't mine. Like I don't have to make that better for them. I don't I don't want to say I don't have to
Right.
care about that, but in a way, I don't have to care about that. Like if I hurt
It's
your
not your
feelings, I
job,
understand, but
right?
yes, it's not yeah, I got to take care of my feelings in my space in my body in my head.
Right. And
Yeah.
realistically, that's all that we actually have control over,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And thinking that we actually have a say in somebody else's emotional experience is really not true. You
Mhm.
know, if we could set up the perfect birthday for someone, but if they just woke up and they decided they're going to be cranky and unhappy that day, and even though we give them exactly what they wanted, they're going to be cranky and they're going to be unhappy that day.
Mhm.
You know, we detaching from another person's emotional experience is freaking hard work, but it's super powerful and it's really super necessary. But I feel like especially as women, we're really geared into believing that like that's one of our list of jobs
Yeah.
is to show up for people and create an emotional experience for them in certain ways.
Yeah. Well, and we take pride in it for a certain
Mhm.
amount of time until it gets to
Yeah.
be too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we've touched on it a little, and I think it's important for anyone listening, seeing as they probably haven't stalked you the way I have in preparing for this interview. But if you would share a little bit about your story and how you ended up here and doing the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always had, I don't know, I like get these ideas in my head of what I think I want to do, and then I'm start to do them, and then I'm like, I have no idea what I want to do. When
Mm.
I was in college, I graduated with like, I don't know, I was photography, marketing, human resources, management, and fashion merchandising. Some
All
of those were
degrees.
majors, some of those were majors, some of those were minors.
Okay.
But I had no idea what I wanted to do. And some people hear me say that and they're like, "Oh, so you wanted to be a fashion photographer?" And I was like, "No, that was one thing I knew I didn't want to do."
Wow.
Part of me wanted to be a National Geographic photographer until
Mm.
I realized how freaking hard that is.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing was I went into PR and fashion in New York. I'm from New Jersey, so it felt natural for me. I mean, I did the commute thing for a long time, going New Jersey into New York, and then moving into New York, and I was in marketing, advertising, PR for two different fashion companies there. Exhausting, tireless work. And I mean, I always loved fashion. I thought that I wanted to do design at one point, this creative outlet, right? But, moving from, space to space, I kind of held multiple hats underneath both areas, underneath both companies. And what I really learned was that what I liked about my job, no matter whether it was PR, marketing, e-commerce, advertising, was the why.
Mm.
Understanding, why are we choosing this photo? Why do some people like this photo or this look more than others?
Mm.
And, coming from a line of helpers, I wanted to feel more fulfilled. I always saw fashion as an awesome way of self-expression, and that is something that the world needs more of, is for people to feel free to express themselves and to
Mm.
have creative outlets to do that. But I wanted to take the next step and really work with them in that space prior to them understanding how they want to express themselves.
Mm.
And that's when I moved to Atlanta. I actually started working for a tech company before I even really realized this, and I started volunteering. I volunteered at Crisis Text Line, just kind of getting my feet wet to see, do I like working with people in this space and having these types of conversations with them, these hard conversations with them, about their mental health. And then I started and then I wasn't sure, so I decided to go and get uh, my training done to be a yoga instructor,
Mm-hmm.
meditation instructor, breathwork facilitator, all of these things. All of these things are as ways and forms of, transforming yourself
Yeah.
and connecting with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I went and I started my master's program for clinical mental health counseling, and I really just wrapped all of my experience together in a bow and realized that that's all what made me and led me here. And I wanted to kind of help people connect with all of that on their own.
So, as you're talking, I'm wondering if you could elaborate on the how you did that, how you mentally got to the point of saying, hey, I'm realizing that I'm only interested in the why. I'm really interested in helping people. I think that having been someone who was in a position of at a job that was stable and I was good at it, but not really understanding my passion and what, like, I ultimately had to go to therapy and read a certain set of books to understand what I wanted and to get here. What did that process look like for you? Like, on a really tangible, someone can sink their teeth in way.
Yeah. So, one, I have an awesome support system in my family, and my mom, I mean, like, she's, older now, and that was probably 10 years ago. And even then she was saying, like, I don't know what I want to do now.
Hmm.
I'm still figuring out what I want to do with my life. So acknowledging that that's, like, just because we choose a path, that doesn't have to be the path that we stay on.
Mm-hmm.
And acknowledging that the doors are always going to be open in any direction as long as we allow them to be. And, in my first job, I was coming home crying every night.
Mm-hmm.
And I was good at what I did. I started as an intern there, and I moved up really quickly, and they saw value in me. And I was, moving and grooving through what I was supposed to do. But there was just this part of me that was off, that I was like, yes, I can keep doing this, but do I want to?
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that, like, we don't have to do anything that we don't want to do. And
Yeah.
it sounds so simple to say that, but, like, you know, it feels like society lays out certain things for us. We go to college, we're expected to go to college, we're expected to get a job right after college, just find a partner, start a family, all of these different things that this path is kind of set out for us.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've never been someone that could just do something and not put my whole self into it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was going to put my whole self into it, I needed it to be something that I enjoyed. And so I went from this job that I was crying after work all the time. And then I switched to a more corporate company that I was doing, I wasn't working as many hours. I was working more normal 9 to 5 hours. And I was still like, okay, well, now I'm bored and
Mm-hmm.
I still don't feel fulfilled. So maybe it's not, the industry for me. Maybe I just need to find something different. And there's a
Interesting.
piece missing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it takes such a, it takes being willing to take chances and
Mm-hmm.
to bet on yourself
Mm.
and to not settle and to truly take time to connect with yourself. I remember I quit my job in New York without knowing what I was going to do. I knew I was moving to Atlanta. I had friends that just kind of they were like, okay, well, I have two people. I have two friends that are moving into an apartment. They're looking for a third roommate. They're moving into a house. They're looking for a third roommate. You're going to be that third roommate. And it's like I woke up the next day and I was like, "Oh, I guess I have to quit my job. I can't just bail on these people. They found a house for me."
Yeah.
And I remember pulling up to my house in Atlanta and my sister had drove down with me. All I brought was what I could fit in my car. And I looked at the house and I sat outside for a second and I took a deep breath and I was like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, I know. I can imagine.
Yeah. And, you know, you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
It's wild, and it's scary and it's tough, but it's so worth it. Like,
Mhm. You're where you are now because of it, and you just like you said, you need to bet on yourself and
yeah,
trust yourself. Yeah.
it's crazy that I'm like getting emotional thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh.
But like now when people ask me how work is or if I like what I do, I'm like, yes, I freaking love it.
Oh,
I love what I do. And
that's
it's,
everything, right?
yeah. And like I came into this industry later than a lot of people did. But, you know, and this is another thing that my mom said to me like, you can either take the chance and make a change right now, or you can wait 20 years and still be unhappy and then make the change then.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
figure it out or
It's
don't.
reminding me of when people say like wherever you go, there you are. You're you're either going to be unhappy now and fix it, or you're still going to be unhappy however long later and then have to do the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so nice seeing this. It's so nice to see someone so just so in your own space, and just it almost feels like the tears are also just coming from being proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Ugh,
And
that's
like
nice.
and I was also very very lucky and privileged in my journey to have people around me to support me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what that journey would be like without the help.
Mm-hmm.
While I didn't have a job, while I'm figuring out what I'm doing, that people were able to, help me.
Yeah.
And that, you can't, there's nothing that can replicate the support that we get. And, sometimes that support shows up as a therapist or, community support or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ways that it can show up. But
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely grateful for all of that too.
Yeah. Well, and I commend you for accepting the help. I think so many of us feel like we have to prove ourselves or have to exhibit some sort of superwoman persona, and just I don't know. I talk to too many women who are afraid or don't know how or don't feel comfortable to ask or receive help. And I think we just need to hear more often the benefits of doing so and kind of get out of our
Yeah.
own way and let people help us and ask for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can go so much further together and with
Mm,
someone giving us a little nudge and a little push.
yeah. So in taking time, you mentioned throughout your journey there that it was about kind of slowing down, having those conversations with yourself, taking time to connect with yourself. How do you think what contributes to us getting so disconnected from who we are? Is it a getting disconnected, or is it a we just mature and learn how to really connect, because they're different, right? I don't know. So this
Yeah. So yeah, I see that happen in two main big ways. And that's our constant go, go, go that really our society kind of pushes on us, right? This constant like grind
mm,
mentality of always being on the move, that we like glamorize having a packed schedule and being too busy and like needing to squeeze things
mhm,
in. And then also that, and just like we talked about earlier, like this ability that we have to attach to other people. And if we're attaching to someone else's emotional experience and we're making that our priority, that means that we have to detach from our
mm,
own. That if we're naming them as number one, well, then anything that we're experiencing, our needs, our desires, are getting shoved down a little bit. So making yourself number one
mhm,
again and, saying no and taking time to be alone and carving out time on your schedule, on your busy to-do list to just, be and to just
yeah,
exist, or to not keep doing, but to allow yourself to just sit and to just
yeah,
settle.
yeah. I remember one of the first weeks that I was working with my therapist. She's said to me, "So what do you like to do?" And I couldn't answer her. I was like, "Well,
Wow.
huh." And I had to go back and start to really sit with that and go. And she's like, "So if you," because at that time I was getting almost no, quote, me time. I was getting no time for my kids, no time or nothing. And she's like, "So when you have, if we're going to work it out, if we're going to get you some time, do you know what you're going to do with it?"
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "And you cannot say laundry or meal prep or vacuum." She's like, "Because you're somehow getting
Yes.
all that done anyway. So what is it that you like to do?" And that was a moment for me. I was like, I don't even know what I enjoy. I don't even know. If I was going to sit in a room
Yeah.
by myself, what would I do? And yeah,
Yeah.
it took some time to really figure those things out again and reconnect to almost a previous version of myself. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That disconnection happens like so
Yeah.
subconsciously. And then we have to work really hard at the conscious part of rewiring and reconnecting to
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I've really come to have real strong feelings about all of this, like you said, glamorizing being the busiest one. Nobody's busier than me. I mean, why? Why do we want that? Why this idea of just being the busiest person ever and disconnecting from ourselves? Is this Does that tend to be the center of a lot of the work that you do with your clients, or what are some of the things that people come to you with that they want to work through, or do they even know?
Um, a little bit of both, right? But or sometimes clients will come in thinking that they know
Mm,
what they want to work on, and then as we kind of rustle through it a little bit, we realize that maybe it's something a little bit
mm,
different, but because when we're disconnected from ourselves or when we don't feel like or we do know who we are but we don't feel like it has a place
mm,
out in this world, and so we need to morph and bend when we present it out
yeah,
into the world, and um, that's an exhausting job all in and of itself. We don't necessarily realize how much
mm,
that affects us, and that can really be a huge part of how we relate to the world around us and relate to people in our lives, even like relate to the job that we do at work, relate to how we show up at school, who we believe we are, and who and knowing who we are and trusting
mm,
who we are such important facets of life that bleed into how we connect with everything else
Yeah.
around us. And, when we're really, really engulfed in someone else or something else, and we're detaching from ourselves, we don't always realize that we're even detached from ourselves because, so many people define themselves. I have people that come in and I say, well, who are you? And they say, I'm a mom or I'm a dad. Okay, but
Right.
who are you? That's like a
Mm.
hat that you wear. But who are you as a
Mm-hmm.
human being? Are you kind? Are you funny? Or what do you exude? What kind of energy do you
Mm-hmm.
have out in the world? And you know, like, well, I don't know because I'm a mom because I've put so much of myself
Yeah.
into my kids, you know, or I work some big job that's
Mm-hmm.
my life and that's who I am. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a CEO or whatever it might be, right? And that's who I am. What do you mean? I don't know. And so, even in the beginning when you're saying like, how do you describe yourself? I'm a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a coach, I'm a yoga instructor. These are things that I do for sure, but like in my like state of being, who I am as a person,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a helper. And I'm compassionate and things like that versus these
Your
things that we
titles.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's kind of like when the first thing someone ever asks you is like, "Oh, what do you do?" It's like, hmm, this is how I'm going to now
Right.
think of myself and define myself. Yeah.
Right. And that also leads to the overworking because, well, if I'm gonna meet somebody new, oh God, they're gonna ask me what I do. All right, well, I want to have something that I feel like is valuable
Mm-hmm.
to reply,
Mm-hmm.
and so that leads us to place so much value on
Yeah.
what we do or how we show like these hats that we wear in the world, the titles that we have in this
Yeah.
world versus who we are as a
So
human
I'm
being.
curious your thoughts on this because as I go through the journey of trying to find out or figure out who I am versus what I do and what I do for others and all of that, what I'm kind of coming around to is that it matters to me who I am, but I care less and less and less every day about what others think and what other people are going to like. It just reminded me of when you said someone's going to ask me what I do and I want to have something substantial to say back to them. I just I just don't care as much anymore.
Yeah.
When you get really
Uh-huh.
good with yourself, it just really doesn't matter. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's really,
Yeah.
really, it's just like, I feel lighter even saying it.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, it's like it gives you room to breathe.
Yeah. 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 I was out this past weekend and I noticed that I'm postpartum. I'm not in a body that I'm used to. And I'm working on being okay with that and, all the things. Um, but I realized that in being out in a like bar environment that part of what I used to really derive pleasure from in that environment was being noticed. And being there now and not feeling as though I am being noticed because of how I look or with this or that, it didn't make me sad or mad. I just was like, huh, this is new, but it's okay. Like it just was such a
Yeah.
totally different experience of, and I'm happily married. I'm not like looking for someone, but you know how it is. Like
Right.
you go out, you get dressed up and you're doing it for a reason, right? So like
Yeah.
there's really been this shift of just realizing I'm at the point where I'm not all the way through it. I'm just sort of noticing the
Hmm.
differences, and it's like I described it as thoughts that I've had before, but instead of landing and staying on my forehead and affecting my whole day or night, they just sort of skate. They're just like on ice skates across my forehead. That's how
Yeah.
I'm describing it to people.
Yeah. You're not it like in the noticing, you're not attaching to the thoughts and being like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, yeah, there's that thought again."
Yep.
And you can keep on going.
Yep. Yeah, it's generally less exhausting and it's generally more freeing. But kind of, it's funny because kind of going through the process of it being more freeing and relieving, I'm intensely overanalyzing it. So it's kind of exhausting me in that way right now.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I'd rather be exhausted with my own processing than being exhausted trying to figure out what others are thinking and processing about me. If that makes
Right.
sense.
And then, yeah, because one, we have no idea. We're making perceptions.
Right.
It's like this very interesting cycle thing, right? Like we're looking at somebody and perceiving them in a certain way to perceive us in a certain way.
Yes.
And, so in that space too, we have like two parts working as one. One, the part of us is just trying to show up and be us and do our thing. And then this part that comes in and is like, oh, but do they think that the way that I'm dancing right now is weird? I should stop dancing like this. This part that's like managing how we show up and how we do our thing. And that's exhausting to play two parts at the same time.
Yeah. I never thought of it like that, but that's exactly it. And I think where it's been interesting for me is that I would never have considered myself to be a generally insecure person. And so it's funny now having the hindsight or maybe just enough reflection now to realize that there were aspects that were less than confident, less than secure, and just now realizing that the opposite of confident and secure, the opposite of not confident and insecure isn't this like overly boastful, confident person. It's just a content, chill person.
Right. Yeah. So as women, right? Like there's like this mentality of like we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, right? So like, when there's this strong, powerful, like intense energy from a woman that enters into an office or enters into a room, a lot of people in that room get uncomfortable and they start naming that person and saying like, well, you can just be comfortable in your own skin and just be totally fine. And that's super powerful in and of itself. It doesn't have to be this strong dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
Between like, oh, I'm just this meek woman that does for other people and and like I care for myself last, but rarely at all. And I don't know why I have to do like this like old timey accent.
And the movements. No one else can see you right now, but it's body language, flowy, just feminine, very delicate rather movements.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
And
because it's a vibe. It's a feeling.
yes.
Yes.
And the opposite of that is like this intense energy. But you can be confident without the intense energy. For a lot of us, myself included, that intense energy isn't any more authentic for me than the meekness is.
Right.
I'm in this gray area, and that's where I feel most comfortable, and that's where I feel most authentic and confident in myself.
Yeah. It's like when people say, or I don't know, I don't have a specific quote in mind, but it's a general sentiment that someone that is kind of that overly boastful, that confidence, that almost like display of emotion is also, we tend to look at that and go, wow, what are they covering up? Like there's probably an insecurity there that we're covering up. And it's almost in the stillness that is the true content self. And this isn't to say that if you're just a bubbly, lively person, we're not talking about personality traits here. We're talking about, I think a lot of what we're talking about is how you show up to a space and just sort of your overall kind of aura, if you will go with
Yeah.
me there on that.
Yes, I will join you on that
Okay.
journey. Yes.
Okay, good. Good. Good.
Yeah. And like, and I've even had moments like that too, where some topic will get brought up and I'm like, why did I oh, this is such a great example of this. Um and my friends still make fun of me for this. But they still joke, like, we were talking about sports and I was like, yeah, like, I was on varsity when I was in high school, and it's like, who the heck cares? Why? Why? And I was still like, why did I even say that? Who cares? What does that have to do with anything?
So it's like, I belong in this conversation. I belong.
Yeah. Why did I have to position myself in this way?
Mm,
What was I trying to, like, what part of me felt uncomfortable there that I
mm.
needed to position myself in this space in that way? Like, so bizarre.
I do kind of want to know what part of you was uncomfortable that you needed to do that.
I mean, it's probably because it's probably my competitive parts of
Fair.
me
Yeah. Fair.
that yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely my competitive parts, especially, like, I mean, I don't know the last time that I played a sport, but and so that's my guard now, right?
Yeah.
Well, I
Right.
haven't played in a really long time, so
Right.
why would I be good now?
You know what's worse is that I actually played in college, and I went to have a catch with a friend of mine a few years later, and I couldn't throw the ball. Like, I could not hit her glove to save my life. And she's looking at me like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And I was like looking around at people like, I don't know. I'm out of shape. Like, it's the most embarrassing thing ever. It was awful. It was awful. And now, if I were in that situation, I would probably just be laughing my butt off. But at the time, I was like in
Right.
panic mode. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I throw the ball?
Yes.
Yeah. Because it did. It became like such a part of my identity to be this athlete, who played in college and went to the big D1 school and was like all about it. And then, it wasn't. And then, you know what? And maybe this is a nice little transition for us. That's also very much part of that whole idea that society sets up these tick marks for us to check off, right? And what I also wanted to say about that, this is going way back now, but I think that can be where people do start to get disconnected from the true self because, yeah, go to school, go to high school. We expect you to go to college. We expect you to get a job. We expect you to have a partner. We expect you to have kids. And taking it back a couple notches, I remember, graduating college and being like, well, now what? Because everyone and every system, every institution up until this point has been completely laid out for me and set up.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that, I had a really nice time period after graduation and that was fun. But It really is, you have to it's the first time in my life that I was on my own to figure out who I was. And then it kind of starts all over again when you have kids and, you have all the hats. But yeah, it's like society's going to set you up and set all these timelines up. And then at some point we're just going to say, go.
Right.
And it's really, it's terrifying. And it's so easy to see how someone might lose themselves in that process. And it takes a level of slowing down, maturity, self-awareness to go, am I happy? And I feel like this is now a tangent, but it helps explain to me when I start to think about, gosh, are there just people who work their whole lives in a job they hate? Like, that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But that's how, I guess, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a whole mess, these societal pressures.
Yeah. And I mean, like, the societal pressures also, like, ask us, like, mute yourself, go through the motions. Who you are doesn't really matter. Just keep chugging along, and where you'll end up will be fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not even necessarily true, especially not necessarily true when, it feels super out of alignment for us, when it doesn't, and it can add to so much struggle too, right? Like, school is not for everyone.
Yeah.
School, like learning in that manner is not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And having a family is not for everyone. It's not something everyone wants.
Right.
But unless you are in this space where you've connected with yourself and you've
Mm-hmm.
recognized, you know what, that's actually a societal norm I'm opting out of. I don't care for that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're going to get ourselves into these spaces that, you know, why doesn't this feel right? I have everything. I have all the things that we're supposed to have. I have all the things that we're supposed to want, and I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, and then it can even spiral into like, wow, I'm a terrible person for having all these things and still not being happy. Why can't I be grateful for all of these things? Like,
The guilt.
yeah, because it's not what you want.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
okay that it's not what you want.
Mm-hmm.
We're different human beings for a reason. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
imagine this world if we were all the same people. Well, how creepy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, that's a horror movie waiting to happen. I'm sure there is one, but it's not my cup of tea, clearly. We're having this conversation. And to your point, I think that, you know, for me, a lot of getting to that point was working with a therapist. Are you of the mindset, of the belief that, you know, everyone should go to therapy, or where do you stand on that?
100%. There doesn't need to be a reason to show up to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everyone can benefit from learning more about themselves,
Yeah.
learning more about how they interact with the world. You don't have to be going through something hard or challenging, or, you know, years of something hard or challenging, or have had a really challenging or traumatic experience in order to meet with someone and talk about it. You know, like a therapist, even if we also have people in our lives that we can confide in, meeting with a therapist is still different, you know?
Yes.
Their detachment from your life allows for different conversations
Mm-hmm.
and a different level of authenticity and honesty, and a different space for yourself to grow. Because
Mm-hmm.
we should always all be growing and learning more about ourselves along the way as we're constantly growing. So there's always something to discover about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, the more of these conversations I have, I realize that as you're talking, it's reminding me that, you know, I think one of the big misconceptions about therapy is that you go there to fix something, go
Mm-hmm.
there to fix yourself, or you fix a situation. And it's really not that. Like, it's really,
Right.
you know, I don't know, just that the word in general, to fix, is just really probably doesn't have any space in this world. And
Right.
secondly, that each of us can decide for ourselves what we deem as being a hard or challenging time. It doesn't have to be what someone else, you know, if you're sharing a challenge with a friend and like, oh, it's not that bad, you know, that's not for them to decide, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's our own experience. And even if you're moving and grooving through this world and you're feeling really strong and really good, cool. Let's come in and let's talk about those strengths and let's build off of them. Let's make those
Mm.
strengths even stronger.
Oh, I love
Let's see
that.
where that takes you.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. Because I think too, it's really hard for us to, for us, not meaning you and me. I guess I'll continue to speak for myself. But I think that I see it in others, and it is hard for me to sometimes feel comfortable to speak highly of myself in just a social conversation where we're just talking about work, or we're talking about accomplishments or achievements. And therapy is a place where you can be egotistical, you know, and not feel worried about it.
Yes. Like all of those thoughts that go through your head that you think like, oh God, if somebody ever realized that I was thinking this, that would be really weird.
Yeah.
No, let's talk about that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's
Yeah.
get that out.
Yeah. I have a joke with my therapist. It's, you know, it's like a as inside of a joke as you can have with a therapist, I guess. But like I'll usually start something. I'll be like, no, you know what? I don't really want to talk about that. And she's always saying,
It's usually the thing that you say you don't want to talk about that we end up talking about the most. So why don't you just get to the point? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not usually because actually what's funny is that those types of things when I say that, it's not because they're usually hard or hurtful or disappointing in any way. I usually tend to feel like it's boring and I don't want to waste my session talking about that.
Yep.
And then, she does what she does and then we're 3 sessions about that. Whatever
Right.
that was.
Right. And it's like, and that's probably a similar reason why it doesn't get attention by you outside of the therapy room too,
Mm. Mhm.
but why it still keeps sitting there. It still keeps sitting there until we work through it.
Yeah, yeah. I've found your Instagram page to be such a resource and for like such just an amazing examples of I think making a lot of what we're talking about very relatable and tangible for people to really understand. Um, you've also talked about on your Instagram your own anxiety, and I was curious how that manifests for you. How does that show up? How do you cope with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, ever since high school, yeah, high school, my anxiety has been around never having enough time.
Mm.
And that can show up in like so many different ways in like talking about societal norms and like, okay, well, there's this timeline. So I have to fit into this timeline. Let's
Mm.
make this work. Or not having enough time on a vacation to like do all the things that I want to do or to
Mm.
relax as much as I want to relax, or
Mhm.
it can not having enough time in the day. It can show up in a million different ways. For me, it's slowing down.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, slowing down.
Mm.
And slowing down happens for me in so many different ways. One of them is saying no. Like, no, oh, this is another big place that I've started saying no. Like looking around the house and seeing a load of laundry that either needs to be folded or needs to be put in the wash and just saying, no, not today. And slowing down and giving myself a break.
Mhm.
And it's such an interesting time when we slow down, it's like we gain more time. It's like
Mm.
time expands itself because we're able to be in the present moment. We're not in the future thinking about all this stuff and time's just passing by us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super powerful. And there's so many different ways to do it. Like going on a walk can, and like similarly to how your therapist says, no, that's the stuff that we have to talk about. Like when you're looking at your schedule for the day and you're saying, oh, I don't have time to like take a 20-minute break to go for a walk or to just step outside and like drink a tea and just be outside for a
Mhm.
second, that's when you need that the most.
Mm.
Because that's when your mind is in that go, go, go space,
Mhm.
in that, for me, that space of like, I don't have enough time. Right. So let's create it. Let's be intentional. Let's slow down. And it just, it's a huge shift. It's a huge shift. And it's not easy
Mm.
by any means. And I go in and out of like times where I am just mastering it and times where my husband will be like, what is going on? Can we relax and sit on the couch? And I'm like, absolutely not. But but we figure it out. And that whole piece, like how you're saying with when you're talking about like your thoughts, right? Your thoughts, you're above your body image and stuff like that, like that you're in that awareness phase.
Mhm.
That awareness is so powerful because it gives us the ability to, that's like where we're able to regain control a little bit, right? Be
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, right, I'm doing that thing again. Or
Mm.
so, okay, so let me throw a wrench in it. Okay, I'm
Mhm.
doing that thing again. I'm acknowledging that I'm doing that thing again so I can name it and acknowledge that it's that thing and not a reality or whatever else, right?
Mhm.
And kind of helps in that slowing down to evaluate, to breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I don't know. I think that I sometimes get frustrated with, I don't know how to say this. Maybe you can help me clean it up. But whenever I start to, like you're saying, I'm kind of I was definitely laughing hard about, your husband saying, can we just relax? Like, what is going on? Being in that time, knowing that it takes work for me to get out of that. I get frustrated with that. And I have to talk myself through that too. Like, I just feel like on a regular basis, I am constantly talking myself through things. And I sometimes at the end of the talking through, I'm like, good job, but I'm annoyed, and then I have to laugh because I'm like, and then I go, well, what's the alternative? That you don't talk yourself through it, and then you're miserable, or then you're just a workhorse and you don't enjoy your time and you are anxiety ridden and anxious and all the things. And yes, the talking through it is much better, and I always see the light, but oh man, it's work being a human being.
So much work. So much work. And, slowly that, like I said, like the original wiring that we have, that all happens subconsciously. The rewiring is a lot of active work, and that's where that like extra piece comes in. We can't, because then just being ourselves is being ourselves in that more anxious state for me. And then I need to add the other layer on top, the other part of myself that wants to feel better, that wants to work through this. That takes a lot of extra energy. So it's energy just being anxious, and then I need extra energy to be like, okay, what do we have to do different? What do how can I show up? What do I need to do? It's a lot. It's no joke.
It is a lot. And I really, my husband will say, he doesn't say it quite like this, but he basically feels like more often than not I am triggered by him relaxing, so I immediately give him something to do.
Oh my gosh, we have the exact same conversation. The exact same conversation. He's like, I think you have some radar for when I sit down. You immediately tell me something to do.
Yes. It drives him crazy, and it drives me crazy to see him relaxing when there's stuff to do.
Yes. Yes, 100%. I feel that so deeply. Yes.
Yeah.
I do feel like I get my husband back where the roles are reversed for us is before we're like travel or like going to an event or something like that. Both of our anxiety before a social event, both of our anxiety starts to kick in. That shows up for him as he wants to be so on time, like 5 minutes early on time, and I would prefer to be a half hour late. And so now, talk about slowing down. Like that's a space where like if I'm going to show up to this place feeling more centered and grounded, I do not compromise there. I'm like, I got to breathe. I mean, we compromise to the point of like, all right, so let's meet at like 10 minutes after, 15 minutes after. And no, those are the challenges. And, and I feel like I've started to try and see him relaxing as a sign for me. Okay, how badly does this need to be done? How much does this stuff need to be done? Is this a must do today, or can this happen at some point this week? And, but I also think even just talking to most of my female friends, they have this, like there's something in our field of vision and our brain, like it's so much harder for me to just relax when there's like something out of order over there and like or like a dish or something. It's like once everything's put away, we can relax. So either you can relax while I put all the things away, or we can do this together and then we can both relax together.
I can't at night. I mean, at night after, when we put the kids down and we're going to chill for a little bit. Like if the kitchen is still a mess, there's toys on the floor, like I'll come down and he's just like the TV's on, he's ready to go, and I'm like looking at him like, aren't you getting hives? Like I can't relax in this chaos. And the thing is though, and this is a whole other thing, but there have been times where I've challenged myself to sit down and not do the kitchen and not do the toys. And you know what? Then I wake up and I have to do it. So now I'm like, forget it, because I don't want to start my day like that. I'd rather spend 10 more minutes at the end of the day doing all the things. And sometimes I will say, just do 7 minutes. Just do this. And you know what? If the 3 minutes that's left that it'll take you in the morning, I can live with that. But like the full throttle clean to come downstairs and have chaos, have a mess, like it doesn't bother him at all. And I'm like, oh my, I cannot handle this.
Yeah. And right now I'm working from home and he isn't. And I'm like, I have to live in this.
Oh, yeah.
And you come home and you don't even see it.
Yeah.
You literally don't see it. And so we started to get on a rhythm at one point where like I felt I really couldn't start my week that way. So Sundays were a big pickup day.
Yeah.
And then that way, at least when I'm waking up to start my week, like then I'm fresh.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at like, oh my gosh, what about that?
You're
oh
not
my gosh,
starting
that.
like behind. You're not
Right.
like having to work up when you're already down or whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah. And I really related even to the sentiment of not having anxious feelings around not having enough time on vacation to do the things, like with a time where you're supposed to just be enjoying and relaxing, and if it happens, it happens. And it's like, where's the itinerary? Are we going to get everything done? It's like, this is not relaxing. You need to sit down.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And, I literally just, with my own therapist, because even therapists see therapists, or I hope that they do. And we just last session, we're talking about like, this month, I was like, I'm going to take off from doing all the things that have been challenging for me, and I'm just going to give myself a break this month. And then I was like, but you know what? I actually have this deadline and I really want to get this one thing done. And so it was like, I either really, really need to show up and get this one thing done, or I really, really need to relax. And I sat there and I just looked at her, I go, so none of this is relaxing or getting anything done. I was like, it's all that it's doing is just putting pressure on myself.
You're just chasing your tail. Like what? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know, but we're working on it. We're working on it. That's what matters. Right.
And like, there isn't really like, you're never just going to be like, that's it. I figured it all out. I packed up all my stuff. It's gone, it's out the door, and I am the best version of myself. Each day we're going to get a little bit better, but I hope that there's always something more that we're going to continue to want for ourselves, that we're always going to want, which is again, even more of a reason to go to therapy. If you're going to tell me there isn't one thing that you want for yourself,
right?
There isn't one thing that you are striving for, that you're working towards, that you want to see happen, that you want to feel happen for yourself. I think
that's going to change in the different seasons of your life too.
Yeah.
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 What is the difference between your counseling practice and your coaching practice?
Yeah. So with my counseling practice, I see people in the state of Georgia. That's where I'm licensed. That's where I see them. So I can see people with everything that they want to bring to therapy. With coaching, I'm seeing people out of state. And so with that, I'm not seeing anyone that is high risk in any way. Gotcha. So no suicidality, addiction, eating disorders, self-harm, anything like that. A lot of what I work on with coaching clients is a reconnection to self, standing back in your power, feeling strong and confident in who you are and figuring out the best way to present that to the world and to build the connections that you want to connect with. And basically taking the world by storm and doing it in your own way. And feeling okay to do that.
Yeah.
You know, breaking out of those ideas of those societal norms, carving your own path and you know, getting the support that you need to do that.
Yeah. Has anything ever surprised you or, I don't know, taken you aback or just giving you pause about the work that you've done with your clients? Anything really stick out as like, whoa, I was not expecting that, even if it had to do with your own sort of perspective on what someone was going through or your, I don't know, your own journey in relation to what you do?
Yeah. I don't know. I think sometimes there's like things just click and like, you know, and this is also a huge part of an important thing about starting therapy and something to note when you're starting therapy. It's like the relationship that you have between therapist and client is so important and pivotal to the work that you do. And so if that's not right, if that doesn't feel right on some level, it's going to be a lot harder to get to where you want to go, to feeling how you want to feel. And so sometimes it just clicks, and then that makes the journey that much more interesting. I feel like when you're in it with someone that there's a connection with versus like, here's my dry therapist that I meet with once a week.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah. And they don't really even get me. They don't understand. And, you know, and I think I'm surprised most by like some days I just will finish with clients and I'll be like, man, today really rocked. People were just grooving. Another really interesting thing is sometimes throughout the week, there will be like themes within clients. Wow. And I find that super interesting as well.
But that is interesting.
Yeah. But it's just so rewarding. Like, it's such a privilege to be able to explore and enter into a space of someone's life. Like, I've always read biographies. Those have always been my like go-to types of books. I love learning about people's lives. Makes a lot of sense how I ended up here. It's just such a privilege to be able to go on this journey with people. You know, it's this level of vulnerability that we sometimes can't even have with ourselves. To be able to share that with other people is just, it's a very cool thing to do.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I really like it.
Yeah. Do you find that you're in ways learning right along with your clients? Are you learning as much from them as they're learning from you?
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%. And you know, a lot of clients are, you know, they're invested in whatever it is this journey is, wherever they're headed. And, you know, they 100%, it's just like, with anything else, right? Where there's like a teacher or something, you learn just as much from your students. You learn just as much from every interaction that we have with someone, professionally or not. I wholeheartedly believe that it shapes us in some way. Every conversation that we have with anyone, it becomes a part of us in some shape or form. And I don't think there's really a way to avoid that. Yeah. And I think that that's honestly really cool. We're this compilation of every conversation that we've ever had, of every interaction and experience that we've ever had. It's all built into us. And that's what makes us so unique. And that's what makes it so hard to replicate who we are. Yeah. So we're all having these unique conversations and unique experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. I really can see a lot of, you know, you said it's not surprising you ended up where you are, and in you saying that, it's not surprising to me why I'm doing this. You know, I wanted and needed conversations around things that were interesting to me and that I wanted to learn from and that I wanted to explore further. And it's really wonderful when you find yourself in that position to do that, to do what it is that you set out to do, that you want to do, that makes you feel fulfilled, you know?
Yeah, like that word fulfillment, right? Like, and it can show up in so many different ways, but just it's a very unique feeling, I think.
Yeah. Deana, is there anything that you would have asked yourself or would have wanted to talk about today that I did not think to bring up or we didn't get to?
I don't know. I don't think so. We went in a lot of different directions. I liked it. We covered a lot of ground here today.
Yeah.
You know, I just think, know that you're worth it. Like, know that you're worth getting to know yourself. You know, you're an interesting person to sit down with. So do it. Sit down with yourself and get to know yourself and take the time to see what it is that you like to do and then go and freaking do it.
I have to say this conversation has surprised me in so many ways. I did not expect it to go in the directions that it did. And for me, I'm just feeling like, yeah, you know what? This was what I needed. This was the universe coming in and going, there's just cool people that can have conversations about this, and they're going to, without even realize it, validate you and kind of just snap you back into like, yes, okay, we're back on the mission. We're back, I don't know. I'm you can hear that I'm very much in the depths of processing because I'm not quite articulate in what I'm saying, but I feel like I just got like rocked off the boat for a minute, and it's like, okay, and through this conversation I've gotten right back on.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I love you, Deana. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Well, Deana, tell everyone please where they can find you. I mean, your Instagram is it's so detailed, it's so thorough, and so actually it's kind of fun actually too. So I really tell everybody where they can check you out and follow and possibly work with you.
Yeah. So you can go to my website, Deana Panza, DeanaPanza.com. And my Instagram handle is the same, @Deana Panza.
Love it. Yeah. Easy enough.
Yes.
All right.
Try and keep it as simple as possible.
I know.
For myself, really.
Right. But well, Deana, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking with you today.
You too. Take care.
All right, so I edited out a bunch of the mindless cackling between us because, I don't know, there was something in the air, probably my fault. But what I loved about this conversation and others like it is that it reminds me that, this kind of heavy stuff can be fun too. We covered a lot, and I mentioned at the end that I really found the conversation very meaningful, especially to where I was at the time of the recording. And I just love that I also really enjoyed myself. I live in this social media world of therapy. Like, I'm following therapists, I'm following mental health advocates. I talk to my own therapist, and then I come on here and do this show and I interview therapists, and sometimes it's a lot. So this was just the right balance of business and pleasure. Deana, thank you for so vulnerably sharing your journey. I'm so honored to have shared this space with you. And I think to sum up this conversation, I want to reiterate your point, Deana, of make yourself number one again. That's it. Make yourself number one again. Whether we're talking about our journey to finding ourselves, changing careers, family, no family, body image, whatever, it all comes down to making yourself number one again. And of course, I say this like it's easy. It's not. I'm still working on it. And so if you're still working on it with me, take a step this week. What's one thing you could do to make yourself number one? Just one thing that you could do this week. Please share it with me on social media. And I've got a few housekeeping things here. So if you haven't seen yet, I have a Find a Pro resource page on my website. So if you're looking for a therapist, please go to www.sasssays.com/pro. Also, I've got a couple of solo episodes coming out in the new year where I kind of take a little deep dive into each of the categories that I explore on the show and how they relate to me right now, what I've tried, what I haven't done, what I'm working on. I've got a self-care challenge coming for you. And very soon, I'm going to start releasing 2 episodes a week. Yeah, I know, you're excited. So head over to sasssays.com or my Instagram or my TikTok, both of which are at says, to keep up with all that's going on over here. So thank you for listening, and thank you, Deana. Talk soon. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.